Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back. Welcome back to the Hot Mic Podcast. Nathan Ivy, aka Nate the Barbarian, with you. And as always, I am not alone. We got a newcomer with us today. Brother Dre is in the house. How you doing, Brother Dre?
I'm on point, brother Nathan the Barbarian. Thanks for
Yes,
having
you
me on
are
the
on
show.
point, bro. Yes, you are. Good to see you, man. Phil Heimlich. What's up, sir?
I'm my usual humble self. I hope you guys like that column that I ghost wrote for Kevin. I thought it was excellent. Do you guys read it?
I did read it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I agree
Yeah.
with all
Well,
of it.
yeah.
Look at you. Okay. And Kevin Aldridge, sir, the voice of reason. We need a voice of reason. Thank you. Thank you for
You know
being
what?
here, man.
You know what's so funny, Nathan, is that I don't know if people are watching this podcast or not, but I've gotten a few emails from Inquirer readers who have kind of adopted that voice of reason moniker. So again, I want to remind everybody viewing that this was not a title that I gave unto myself. This is what the people are saying,
That's what the
so
people are saying.
I just want to make that clear.
Very
Phil
true.
always tries to.
Hey Phil, we having some problems with your connection, man, which is very rarely ever happens. Not sure if you can hear me, Phil, but we're having problems with your connection. Let me stop that for 1 second. It's rare. It never really happens with his connection. I don't even think he can hear me because I can hear him trying to talk. Hey Phil, you're actually frozen. So you might want to disconnect and come back. So we'll wait for that. A little bit of false advertising. My bad on that. We got Raven Mundy with us, and she may. I don't think I would plan for her not to be with us. She has something come up, but I told her, the door is always open, so she may pop in. You never know. A little wishful thinking, maybe, but she is not with us today. Just to let you know, just give you a heads up. Let me try Phil again. Phil is still okay. So I'm gonna disconnect Phil on my own, and that'll force him to come back, hopefully, and then hopefully it'll reset his whole system. But Brother Dre was with us, man, and you've been doing Curse Breakers 300. Is that it's been a live show? Like people who don't know you and he see you for the first time, tell them who you are and what you do.
Yeah, of course, I'm a retired police officer, almost 30 years from the CPD, which is a miracle. So I thank God I'm still in my right mind at this present time. And of course, Curse Breakers 300 was started actually in the prison system to help brothers and sisters overcome strongholds in their life. And then the 300 is just like Gideon's 300 in the Bible, but people mostly recognize it as the movie that you only need a small amount to move mountains. And that 300 is an elite group, but you only need just an elite group to do some powerful things.
All right, I like it. Sounds positive. A couple things though. So, Brother Dre, something's happening with your audio. I don't know what it is. I hear something weird like every 3 seconds coming in and out, and it's kind of distracting. Just kind of thinking for the audience. And then, okay, Kevin kind of read my mind. I was going to think just a little bit more light would be
Yeah, I
better.
was going. I was going actually going to excuse myself for a second. I don't have my backlight on. I need
Okay,
to grab it real
yeah,
quick.
yeah. As we wait for Phil, let's do that. And Phil
Okay,
must
you
have a
need
beat.
you need better sound from me.
Yeah, it's might you might want to pop out and come back in as well. I'm not sure what's going on
Okay,
with
let
the
me let me
audio.
double check. It could be the earpiece.
Oh, so you've got it coming in through your.
Correct.
Oh, that's
Let
what
me
I'm
take
hearing.
that off and see what happens.
Okay.
Is that better?
Well, let's just keep talking here and I'll see.
All right.
It definitely sounds different. It doesn't
Okay.
sound. It definitely sounds not as good quality, but I don't hear that sound. That little. It was like some kind of I don't know some kind of reverb, like an audio
Okay.
wave was coming through.
Okay. How's this?
All right, let me take a listen to it real quick.
Is it still doing the same thing, or is it better?
Uh, so far, sounds cool. I don't hear,
Sounds
but you're not
good.
talking, so it could be that.
Yeah, I'm talking now. So just testing 1, 2, 3. I'm on the hot
Okay,
mic.
I hear it, but maybe the audience. Cruther keep Phil out. We cool. That's so cruel. It's so cruel. We'll see. We'll see. I think he must be having some real connection issues. But let's get into it. So, as I was telling the guys, about starting up the topics, I want to talk. So we got Brother Dre here. I want to talk about something that he's been talking about in the city of Cincinnati. We're a Cincinnati-based podcast. A lot of people are still talking about and mourning the loss of this young man, Nehemiah McMillions, who at 12 years old is no longer with us. Apparently, he was with some dudes that stole a car. As Brother Dre was telling me, he was in the passenger side. The owner of the vehicle ran out, chased him down, drove him down, shot into the vehicle. I think it's super irresponsible. I think the whole situation just reeks to mixed up priorities and valuing the wrong things. But this is a very, very sad situation. But since we got Brother Dre here, I want to get your thoughts on that. And I know you have talked a lot about, what's happening in the city in terms of crime and just the city in general. But what's your take on that?
Well, my take on it actually is, man, the frustration of the people that say just in Cincinnati. They are tired of this consistency going on. A lot of things with the youth are running amok, the issues that we see and hear in downtown Cincinnati. And here you have a frustrated, what I call owner of his property is taken. He sees it and he's tired of the foolishness and he's at his breaking point. He just straight said, I'm done. And he didn't care basically who was in the ride. He already had a made up mind that when I see my vehicle, I'm going to chase it down. I'm going to shoot whoever is in the car. And that's the sad part, is that crime is now reaching a point where people are extremely frustrated, and these juvenile kids are taking these cars like it's nothing. They think they're playing the video game. They think that it's a joke, and they are literally seeking out cars to steal on a regular and daily basis.
Yeah. Brother Dre kind of touched on a little bit what I said in the last podcast, and what he said is kind of consistent with what I sort of hear from readers of the Inquirer who write in is that things have reached a boiling point with some folks in this community who are tired of the crime. And unfortunately, there's a growing sense among people in the community that the police are not doing enough to deal with the youth crime and the youth violence. And so this is unfortunately one of the negative byproducts that comes from that frustration is some people choosing to take the law into their own hands. Now, look, there are two different conversations that we're having right here. First of all, what this guy did was totally over the line, totally unacceptable, totally inexcusable. Chasing down, driving down, and shooting into a car over a stolen piece of property, that just is not anything that we should condone or think is okay, regardless of the frustration. I think it's extra chilling, extra sad when you look at the age of the young kids who were the one who lost his life was 12, and then I think the driver of the vehicle also maybe suffered some injuries. I think that driver was 13 years old. So you hate to see that. So I think we have to condemn the reaction and what the owner of this car did off the top. Like that's one part of the argument. The other part of the argument is very much what Brother Dre said. Some of these kids, not all, we don't want to paint all kids in Cincinnati with a broad brush, but we do got to acknowledge that there is a percentage of kids out here who are just off the chain, engaging in activities that they should not be engaging in, that are criminal. And on top of that, they're dangerous. Our young people have to understand, and unfortunately, too many of them have learned in recent weeks the hard way. We have two young men, both teenagers, Black men, who are no longer on this earth because of poor decisions that they made with regard to being involved or related to criminal activity. Now, I've heard the parents of the 12-year-old who lost his life, apparently he wasn't in, and this is just based on some of the reporting that I've seen and what the family has said, is that essentially he wasn't involved in the taking of the car, that basically he was kind of caught in what he called was a spin around. I guess the kid who originally stole the car spun back around, picked up the 12-year-old. I guess they were homies, and he just perhaps found himself caught up in a bad situation. So before we completely throw the 12-year-old under the bus and saying that he stole the car. That may not have been the case. He might have the thing he might have been guilty of was having, associating with poor choice in friends and a poor decision to get inside of a car, a stolen car with a friend of his.
Let me ask you something, Brother Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the 12-year-old he gets in a car, usually it's joyriding. They know that, hey, you 13 years old, you pull up and you got a car. Either who's the car, where'd you get the car, plus you're not old enough to drive, I'm gonna walk. And what we found is a lot of these kids, it is about 3 or 4 or 5 deep, and they know for a fact that the car is stolen. That's why usually as soon as the police pull them over, they either take off or they all run out of the car immediately. So it is definitely bad, horrible choice. But he had to know at least, like, yeah, the guy that I'm rolling with, he's not even old enough to drive.
Yeah.
Can I jump in here?
Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
My experience as a prosecutor for 10 years, city council member 8 years, is that, because I want to deal with the second part of the two questions that Kevin, I think we all agree this guy's shooting was just shooting that was terrible. But let's talk about the crime issue. My experience has been when you have what I call aggressive policing, not necessarily illegal, but aggressive policing, crime goes down. When you have constant criticism of the cops and they feel they're constantly under fire, no pun intended, under fire, they don't take as many risks. They back off. Best example in New York City, they under Bloomberg and I hate to admit it, Giuliani, the crime went way down, largely because they were using stop and frisk. Okay, well, the folks the liberals, whatever, they got a court to suspend it. Well, guess what? When de Blasio came in and he was behind that effort to change that, the crime shot up. And that has always been my experience in Cincinnati. After, if you remember, after the riots, I'm going back a long time, but after the riots, they formed a so-called commission of some, I forget the name of it. And the guy who helped start the riot was put in charge, head of the commission, which was basically, I think, a slap in the face to the cops that were out there for 48 hours defending against violence. And so, I know that's not a view that you guys share. I don't know about Dre, but I know about you guys. But the truth is, if you think that you can have this kind of attitude that the cops, we're not aggressive, we're just part of the community, and then you're going to also reduce crime, won't happen.
Yeah, you're completely wrong. But I'm glad you said everything you said. You are completely wrong. And I'm so glad that Brother Dre is here so we can get to the bottom of this. I mean, this idea that, what'd you say, Phil? We need aggressive policing, but as soon as you start criticizing the police officers, they lose morale. Point blank.
No, they stop taking risks. They stop.
No, they don't. No,
yeah,
no,
they do.
no. They I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Listen,
I've seen it.
Okay, you may have seen it, but let me describe it.
Council members all the time, that kind of thing.
If you saw that, listen, criticism is a part of the police law enforcement game. You know that from the jump. You know where you're trying to do. You know where you work.
The result is.
It is a highly politicized position, and if you don't have the stomach for citizens to criticize what you've done to other citizens, then you don't need to be. Then you don't need to be a police officer. If criticism on Facebook is going to make you stop doing your job, you do not need a police officer. Be a police officer.
You choose
I don't
police
believe
force,
that
I'm
one
telling
bit,
you,
Phil.
The cops, that is how the cops react, whether you like it or not.
I don't care how they react. If they react that way, they should not be on the force.
It isn't just white officers.
Then you know what I would tell the officers? I tell the officers the same thing I tell the NBA players during the playoffs. Get off of social media. Don't watch it. Don't look at it.
We're not talking about
a job. You have a job to do.
I don't think you understand what I'm saying.
I understand.
Now, granted,
you're making excuses for police officers. Talking about people might criticize them.
Votes.
I'm curious to know what Brother Dre got to say. I mean, you got a police officer in the room. Let's chill with the spec. Let's hear what Officer Dre got to say.
That's why they calling it hot mic. I see Nathan done turned into the barbarian on me. I said, oh, it's about to get heated.
Oh yeah.
It's on. Hey, I gotta go ahead and agree with Brother Phil. Because at the end of the day, if the officers sit back and they know that administration has their back, they will step up aggressively. But once you have an issue where they get plastered, their family gets plastered, every situation they do is under a microscope, you're not gonna have a police officer say, I'm gonna risk getting sued by the entire city and of
Or
course some
indicted.
of the citizens and die for people who completely don't care. Because Brother Nathan, what you saying is you want a complete city with no police, because there is some backing that you need to do the job aggressively. And if you do it, people want a super soft situation. I'm like the Joe Clark situation. Hey, you got a bad, they said a bad apple won't spoil a bunch, but what about 300? They gotta go. And I believe once that is implemented, you will have a situation. I ain't saying violate nobody, but you do have to have some type of aggressive policing, that this soft policing that we've seen with the youth. Even know they go to jail at the Hamilton County and laugh and be like, yeah, I'm about to get out, and they tell you it's a joke. They said, man, I don't care if I get arrested. I'm laughing. It's a joke every time they steal a car, every time they do some crime. People know, what do they say? Oh, Clyde Bennett, he just got somebody off. He had mass dope in a car with a gun, and these judges still let him go. You ain't gonna expect an officer to turn around the next day and put his life on the line, get guns off the street, and the judge says, well, you know what? I'm gonna still let you go with a slap on the wrist. Not gonna happen.
I see what the problem is. You know, the problem is some of these officers' mentality. That's what I see. I'm glad you said all of that. You just gave me a window into what the problem is. The problem is some of these officers, because I will reiterate, going back to what Phil said, any officer that's caught up with what people are saying on Facebook and what they saying out there is not on point.
It's human nature. Human nature.
But I think it's cheaper
if we can expect athletes to tune out Twitter, then I expect law enforcement to tune out Twitter and do their job.
The athletes don't. I mean, look,
the best do.
They don't. Even the best don't. What the best do is they don't talk about it. They don't tell you about it. But Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, all of them guys, all of the athletes will tell you in a quiet moment that they see all of that. They and some of them use it for motivation, right? I mean, I just wrote about this week in the Inquirer about, just sort of mental health of police officers and all of that sort of thing. And look, at the end of the day, I don't care what you do for a living. We're all human. And we hear the criticism and we react to it and we internalize it. Now, what you do with that and how you turn around and use that in terms of the jobs that you do, that's another thing. But I think the reality to sit back and say that none of us are affected by the criticism that we receive, I just don't think is
Nobody
true.
Said that,
and what Dre, let me repeat what Dre said that was very insightful. It isn't necessarily just criticism. It's a fear that if you take some aggressive steps, you're going to be sued or indicted.
Get another job.
Or not backed up by the city administration.
Yes.
I don't believe it one bit.
Thing.
There's 1,000 officers that seem to be getting by on it. Brother Dre, he just retired. He spent 30 years. So obviously the criticism ain't that bad because you stayed and did the job. All I'm saying is, if you're going to stay and do the job, don't be worried about what people are saying on Twitter, or do your job. Put your head down. Same thing we asked Joe Burrow to do and Jamar Chase to do. Put your head down. Don't pay attention to your critics and serve the public. So that's what I'm saying.
I do think, but Nathan, I think, and again, this is where you and I all constantly disagree on this program, is you're a black and white dude. You don't leave any kind of room. You don't leave any kind of room for the nuance. And I think you got to listen.
No, not at all.
I think you got to listen. I think you got to listen to what. I think you got to listen to what Brother Dre said. He said, if you are a police officer and you're arresting guys for the same crime and you taking them to court, and every time you take them to court, you got a judge who is releasing them and letting them go back on the street, and even the criminals recognize this is how the system is going to go. Eventually, at some point,
That's bull
In,
crap.
in any profession, somebody is going to look at it and going to be like, well, why, I'm not going to even waste my time doing this paperwork, doing this work. I'm going to just let it go, because all this judge is going to do is let them right back out. Now, you cannot like that, Nathan. And again, this is the thing that I always argue with you about on this program. A lot of things that you don't like, you don't want to accept the reality of what happened.
Right? Is that right?
And it is. And what Brother Dre is trying to say, this is what officers are doing. Is you might not like it, but that don't make it any less true.
Yeah, can I mention something too here also?
Sometimes what we gotta look at is the systems and the way that we're doing things, and try to address those, and not always put it out on the officers and say they need to adjust the attitude.
It's not a zero-sum game. In other words, it isn't like the cops should get off if they're not willing to be there. I defer to Dre on this, but I think there's a balance here. They can be less aggressive, more aggressive, still be within the law. It isn't like they're quitting the force. It's just that they're saying, hey, I don't want to, given the environment, I don't want to risk getting indicted or whatever. So I think it isn't as he said, it's not a black and white thing. It's a level of policing.
Well, let me ask you this: Does Joe Burrows don't get indicted for throwing an interception? Chase don't get indicted for dropping a pass that he should have in the end zone. I mean, so you got to look at the whole process that under the pressure that officers are under. And you're right, Brother Nathan. When you say get another job, they exactly are doing that. They are leaving the police force, and that's why I always said in one of my casts, I said you want Gotham City. So there has to be some type of balance.
No, we just want professional police officers.
And no doubt. And with professionalism, still has to be a process that everyone has to do their job. The judges got to do their job.
None of your business.
And everyone else has to do their job for us to sit back. Just like if you mention football, that the line ain't doing their job. Burrow's on his back. He may throw a couple passes, but guess what? They still taking L's.
But you know what? I understand the comparison with judges, and I hear what you're saying. And you brought up the fact of officers can be frustrated because the recidivism rate. But what I would say is, mind your business. You're not the judge. That's not your job. And I can understand you can have an opinion about it, but it's the judge's job to review you, not the other way around. All that the judges won't do their job is nothing more than that Republican bull crap they try to run down on Democrat judges. That's all that is. The real problem is
actually some of the worst ones when I was a prosecutor were Republicans.
I'm just saying.
There's a couple judges, I won't name them, and they were Republican. They would never ever send anybody to jail. Just wouldn't do it.
And that's a good thing. And that's a really good thing. And that's a really good thing.
If you keep throwing the case or just putting them on probation, which they don't care about. Okay, what you're saying, it isn't natural for police officers to get frustrated?
I didn't say it wasn't. You can be frustrated all you want to. All I'm saying is go do your job. Go do your job as police officer.
I think you do have police officers who are doing their job. I think that's an unfair characterization. Mm-hmm. I think the reality of what we have
Kevin, I'm talking about the situation that Phil talked about.
Let me finish my point. I think the reality of what we have to acknowledge is something is broken within the system. Now, that could be at all levels. It could be in the police. It definitely is in the courts. It's in a lot of different places, because you see this time and again, there are a lot of young people who are being cycled in and through the courts and who are arrested one day and they're back out on the streets again the next day. And some of these are the same people that are committing crimes over and over again.
And
yes. So what, Nathan? Until somebody.
That's the way the system works.
Wait a minute. It's so what until somebody steals a car, drops a gun, and then gets shot by a police officer.
Kevin, it's so what,
bro. That is such a.
What I'm saying is you worried about the wrong thing.
You're worried about the wrong thing. You're worried about the wrong thing. I'm worried about trying to get a system. I'm trying to worry about getting a system that is fair, to people, but also
I gave you the floor twice. Can I finish what I'm trying to say?
Well, you ain't let me finish.
I did. That's how I got in. I can't get in. Go ahead. Right. So here's what I'm trying to say. All that don't matter. You worried about the wrong thing. I don't want a system that throws young people in jail the first or second time they commit a minor
But
offense.
that's the thing. These are not first or second time offenders. That's what Brother Dre is trying to tell you. These are kids that have been in and out of the court system
in your opinion,
multiple
but
times,
unless you can give me specific crimes, that's the way the system works. See, that's the way it works. Like, you're innocent until proven guilty. You're probably going to get out on bail. That's the way it works. And I don't want to change it and make it more harsh.
No.
Because history shows
The worse your record is, the higher the bail.
History shows us that when you have harsher penalties, hold on, Phil. History shows us is that when you have harsher penalties, it comes out harsher on black people. So what are you talking about here?
That's
we want judges to just put the kids in there for the first offense. What are you saying?
Well, I know what I'm saying is that the recidivism rate is so high because there is no rehabilitation. Now, I've worked in the prisons. I've been inside, say, Chillicothe, and also the Justice Center doing the Curse Breakers 300 program. And I'm going to tell you directly, they started to see significant change. They started to see that I was repairing the breach to already have them jobs set up before they get released, and the whole process, because they come right back. And I'm going to tell you right now, most of those guys in there, there is no rehabilitation at all. And they sat there, and I have written testimony. They said, man, these other programs is fake and false and foolish. And then you come in with a significant program and question the system to make sure we can not go back to comeback. And they don't give them the resources. But we also talking about several individuals, and I'm talking about, Nathan, box scores that I see. Why has this person been arrested 40 times? Now, make that make sense. You've been arrested 40 times and haven't been rehabilitated, and you're worse. Now what? The citizens got to deal with it. The community has to deal with it because they have not set up proper punishment. I'm all for you with mass incarceration with blacks. I agree with you. They did a whole movie on the 13th on Netflix. I get it. But I'm sitting here telling you, when is enough that we don't keep allowing somebody to repeat? And if you ask every hardened criminal, why did they continue to do what they do? They said, man, doing a year, 2 years, that's nothing. I'll do that in my sleep and go right back out and do the same thing.
Yeah, there is definitely a distortion in your audio. There definitely is a distortion. Can you plug out? I don't know. Maybe it's the earpiece. It's something.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it off.
People in the audience are now saying that they can pick up on it. That might be
better.
It's kind of
I'm off of it. How's that sound?
That sounds better for now. I can't tell until you like really talking for like about 10, 15 seconds. That's when I can really tell. But right. You said the right word. So now we talking. See, fellas, this is not a punishment issue. This is not a punishment issue. We can't punish these kids out of this problem. Brother Dre said the right word, resources. This is a resource issue. So all this, what the judges do, that is not the issue. We already tried over incarceration and 3-strike laws, and all we did was get a whole bunch of black and brown people locked up, and it didn't change anything. We tried that. This is a resource issue. I bet you most of these people are coming from under-resourced communities, areas, pockets of the city.
Look at New York under Bloomberg. That's the best example I can think of.
Look at Baltimore.
Under Bloomberg, they were fairly aggressive. They did stop and frisk, and it dropped the crime rate significantly.
Yeah,
so when you say punishment has nothing to do with it, Nathan, that's just not true. Okay?
Yeah, it's just this. Stop and frisk is unconstitutional. Look at Baltimore, where they've actually put resources in their community for the long term, and now they're experiencing a lot of significant, decreases in their crime. This is not a punishment issue. Everybody keep coming, they babies. Man, this is a resource issue.
Are you telling me, as Dre said, if you get a guy off the street and he's locked up, can that guy then go out and commit crimes? No, he can't, because he's in jail or prison.
What I'm telling you is,
I think there are a couple of different ways that you can look at it, right? So there's a proactive approach, which is the larger question that maybe we should spend more time having a conversation about, which is how do we keep our kids from winding up in these situations anyway? Like, how do you proactively keep young black kids or just young kids in general in the city who are engaged in this activity out of this activity. That's one conversation, because the conversation we're having right now is the reactive conversation after things have already happened. What should happen?
No, that isn't true. That isn't true. The reason the thing in New York was effective is because the people who were thinking about
you're talking
about
again, Phil. You're talking about people who are already involved in criminal activities and catching those people and dealing with them. Like, I don't look. Stop and frisk was a bad idea because it's a violation of rights. If I'm walking along and I'm not doing anything wrong, and the police roll up on me and they want to frisk me, that is a violation of my rights.
Unless the rule is they have to have reasonable suspicion.
Well, and usually that reasonable suspicion is that you're black, Phil. And of course, you probably don't know anything about that because you're white. But most of the time, the only reasonable suspicion that cops needed to have, particularly in New York and other places, to stop you was because you were black and maybe in a place that they didn't think that you should be there. That's why people are against stop and frisk. You're not against it because they wasn't stopping white folks and frisking them on the street corner for no reason. That was mostly happening to black and brown people. So I guarantee you, if white folks was having their rights violated like that, the police was rolling up on them on the street for no reason other than they just thought you didn't look right, they would be against stop and frisk too. So stop that. That's a complete violation of people's rights. It's a bad idea, and they were right to get rid of it.
It's an example of aggressive policing, and
it's also an example. It's also an example of violating people's constitutional rights.
It's not just stop and frisk. I use that as an example.
It's a terrible example. You got to use another example.
I've already said what I'm going to say. But the point being, when the police feel I hate to use it, their hands are tied or they're at risk of some kind of liability, they are not going to take the same risks that they would if they felt the public, or I should say the elected officials and the city administration had their back.
So basically what you're saying is we need to mollify police officers' delicate feelings in order to get them to do their jobs on top of the pay and pension and everything else they get. Is that what you're telling us? We need to coddle them and maybe wipe their bum. Is that what you're saying? Man, stop.
I'm saying
your job.
You got to recognize human nature.
Do your job, grown up.
Any job, human nature. In any job, if your boss or the people you work for constantly kind of criticize you, you're not going to take any risks.
Yeah, please. And I'm not going to be a police officer. If you can't take a little bit of criticism from your city council, or maybe there's a shooting and people feel some kind of way about it, and then they turn their attention to the larger local police force, and you're on that force. If you don't understand the job you're going into,
I can tell you, I was on a city council. When I was
then don't do the job, then Phil.
When I was on city council, when there was a police shooting, before any decision or any evidence was produced, or in other words, before it went through any kind of proceeding to determine right or wrong, all the other council members attacked the police because they knew it got them votes. I'm not trying to say, but I was the one who did not. And they instinctively attack the police in that situation because it's good politics.
Attack or criticize.
It's not just about the politics, though, Phil. It's about politicians being responsive to what the people are telling them about how they're being policed. And the reality is that there's a difference in the way that black and brown communities are policed than white communities are policed. Now, some of that is simply because the truth of the matter is that far too many black and brown communities deal with poverty, and we always know that crime is not far behind poverty in certain neighborhoods. And so the racial, the wealth disparity gaps and poor neighborhoods, more poor black and brown neighborhoods versus poor white neighborhoods. That's why you see these black communities being over policed. And quite frankly, a lot of times the aggressive policing that you're talking about goes too far. So here's what I would say is that most people are not against aggressive policing. I think most people want criminals off the street. Hey, if you do a crime, I don't want you breaking into my house. I don't want you stealing my car. I want the police to deal with that. And I want the people who are responsible for that to be held accountable for their crimes. What I don't want is for police to be roughing up people unnecessarily, violating their rights, stopping them and frisking them for no reason, or at worst, taking their lives when lesser measures are taken care of. Now, I don't think that is too much to ask, an expectation for the community to have from law enforcement. Now, I get, there are certain situations that don't always turn out right. but I think we can all point to situations where we have seen police be more aggressive perhaps than was necessary. I think last night was a perfect example of what we're talking about when we saw that the protests that got out of control over in Kentucky last night on the bridge. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that every protester was right or doing whatever, but I did see some police officers in that situation who were just beating the hell out of people who were not resisting in that case.
No, Kevin, that's just aggressive policing.
Yeah,
that's what Phil wants.
And so that's the kind of stuff that is not politics. That's what people are responding to. And in that situation, the police had full control over that situation. There was their reaction in that situation from just what I saw. In some cases, maybe not in every case in that situation, but there were definitely some officers that I saw from the video that has been posted online that went way, way too far. And that's the type of stuff that, I'm sorry, if officers have an issue with the public criticizing them over stuff like that, criticizing them over George Floyd.
No, you can't criticize them though, Kevin. You can't criticize you can't criticize the police because then they can't do their job. And please do your job like an adult. You know what field of you're going into is highly politicized. It's highly up and down with swings with local politicians, state, national. You know what you're getting into. And this idea that you can't criticize what you see is wrong and at the same time support police is one of the biggest lies out there. You can do both. And that's why I say this whole criticism thing is just nonsense. It's a waste of time. But I wanted to make that point and stay in that ground because it needs to be said. You can criticize police when you think they're wrong and still support them. And if police officers can't understand that, they are too immature to be on the force. And I don't think anybody can disagree with that. But Brother Dre, how do we from the police? I hear a lot of people saying, but going back to Phil's point, are the police being held back? Is that part of why we see, what we see in the streets of Cincinnati?
I don't think the police though. It's a catch-22. You're saying are the police being held back? I think there's hesitation in the things that they would want to go after based on the scrutiny that they know will come from it. Even if it's a legal, viable arrest, they still sometimes may question themselves in the process because of the consistent eye that's on them 24/7. I mean, it's easy to say, hey, well, don't be a baby, don't worry about it, do what you have to do, and then they go ahead and do it. But what's interesting is that you're asking a human being to become very, very numb to the process of what they do and become a robot. Because in my career, this is going to sound crazy, 30 years almost policing, I probably did over 500 arrests for domestic violence. Do you know how many actually were prosecuted? 1. So you're talking about 500 cases, 1 prosecution.
What is your point, sir?
In domestic violence. The point is, I got to a point where it was like, I'm going to just do my job. And you know that more than likely the victim is not going to show up or they're going to cancel the case. And you become numb to the process to where you just don't eat a Big Mac at a murder scene. So you're asking officers to either have a heart or just say become a robot and don't care at all. Do your job and just keep it moving. So you can't have it both ways.
And I think here's the thing and the truth, I think, of what Brother Dre said. And I think what we have to adapt to as a society, and this was the whole point of my piece that I wrote about the mental health of police officers is that we don't, Nathan, your attitude is exactly the attitude that's been pervasive, not just from the public, but even within the police departments over years that has not been healthy and does not necessarily result in the best quality of policing for our communities. Is to Brother Dre's point, that we expect police officers to be robots and not to be human beings. And there's an attitude like, oh, if they feel a certain way, they're just sensitive, right? Like even within the ranks, there was this sense that if you experience traumatic things or you see traumatic things, you're not allowed to have any kind of emotions or feelings about it, because then you're soft and unfit and unstable for the job. And so I think, recognizing that there is a mental,
but go ahead.
No. I think that there is a recognition that we need to have, that there is a mental health component to it, that I think Brother Dre is trying to articulate, that cumulatively, yeah, you can take one incident and say, okay, we'll get over it. But it's not just one incident with most of these police officers. It's cumulative stuff that creates, whether it's
what they see happens to other officers. What they see happens to other officers, that affects them, and that causes the hesitation, which is what Dre was talking about.
I think it's a mistake. I think it's get another job then.
Yeah, but Nathan, you can't say that. You can't say that.
Oh, I can say that.
Because what you're already seeing is, and this is the other thing that I think the average person doesn't take into account. It takes a certain type of person to do police work. Everybody ain't built to do police work. And the fact that right now police departments all across the country are having a difficult time recruiting police officers, if they take your attitude, just get another job, then crime is really going to get out of control, because you're not going to have it. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. Phil ain't going to do it. I
don't believe that one bit.
And so, I mean, you can believe the numbers or you cannot believe the numbers, Nathan. I mean, it shows up in the fact that just about all of these police departments are understaffed. Yeah. I mean, you want to be like a MAGA person. You want to be like a MAGA person and not accept the facts and the data. That's on you.
What we're listening to is the wussification of America. That's what we're looking to. The wussification.
Is that a real word, Nathan? I don't remember that.
If it's not, I just made it a real word.
Right, it should be a real
word. Okay. Brother Dre, correct me if I'm wrong, but as a police officer, don't you have access to mental health professionals if you need it?
You do.
Okay, then use them. So if you're an officer and you getting all stoned or whatever you feeling, listen, do your job. If you want to be the lawyer and the prosecutor, then go to law school and be the prosecutor and fight it on the other side. But I don't have a lot of sympathy for somebody who's like, well, I had all these cases, only one got convicted. Okay, you still did your job though. Your job is not to find them guilty or not. Your job is to do your job. So do your job and go on.
What's the point of him constantly arresting domestic violence offenders if nothing happens to him?
That is the point.
What's the point? What's the point? That's what he's saying.
The point might be as small as in those separate moments he delayed it or removed somebody from a situation. We may never know what the point is, but the job is what he did. And this man did his job. That's it. You don't get a chance to decide what the future outcome is going to be of every arrest. That's not your job. Your job is police officer. Go do that. And when you feeling all sad and melancholy, go talk to mental health professionals or get another job. That's it. That's it. Period.
Yeah, that's easier said than done. Just in the society
I know it is.
And you know it is just to say I'm gonna get up and I'm out. And plus, police officers wear many masks. I mean, it's easy to say, hey man, won't you just talk to this doctor? And they tell you it's private when it's not, because you got to tell your supervisor I got an issue. And then you tell the supervisor saying, well, why isn't this person showing up to work? Because they needed some time off. Now administration riding your ass because you're not at work. Now they putting pressure on you. Think about this. After a shooting, even if it's a clear shooting, the officer only gets 7 days to regroup. You just went through a traumatic situation and they telling you get back to work in 7 days. And that's why it's easier said than done that I'm getting up in the morning, I'm kissing my family goodbye, love you, my daughter, come to work, roll call, murder scene out the roll call, domestic violence, my daughter don't want to go to school, make sure they get to school, then I got a speed chase up to 100, and you are still on duty until your 10-hour shift goes, and then you got to shake it off. I mean, it's easy to say, man, just go ahead, but that's why officers got the highest suicide rate, because at the end of the day, they saying, man, does really anybody care? Because when I come to you, Nathan, and you've been in the crime, why do you think people didn't say, man, that officer didn't care? He shrugged me off like, yeah, what do you want? You want me to come in and be like, hey, Mr. Ivy, what can I do for you? You've been in a serious crime. Now, here's another black man that just got his ass kicked. He probably stole something. Let me treat him a certain way. So there has to be some grace, my brother. You got to
there's a lot of grace. There's a lot of grace.
Brother Dre, you hit on a great point. And I'm not just promoting my own stuff, but if you have not read the piece that I wrote earlier in the week, go back on Cincinnati.com and find it, because Brother Dre just did an excellent job of articulating pretty much everything that was in that column. And let me just go ahead and say this, Nathan, you talked about the mental health programs and things that are available to police officers now. But what Dre didn't mention is that if you go back 5-10 years, that wasn't available. This is a relatively new thing that police departments here locally and across the country are acknowledging is necessary, because a healthy officer is a more effective officer, and that is better. And that is better for the community as a whole. That is better for the community as a whole. So you can't just sort of poo-poo and shovel off this mental health stuff and like, oh, this is the wussification of America.
Yeah, well, see, this is where you guys are getting wrong.
Look, man. Hey, bro. See, that's the problem right now with our country right now. Is that, yes, it is. Absolutely, it is, because
the wussification, on some levels, you're right.
Nathan, is you gotta. The problem is you got a whole lot of people in our society walking around, police, politics, school districts, you name it, that are dealing with unresolved trauma that they need some mental health, that they probably need to talk to somebody about. And when you look at the behaviors that they exhibit and the actions that they take, it is a direct result of unresolved mental health issues that they have. And until as a society we quit talking about soft and wussification and recognize that people are carrying around a lot of damage that we can't see, that shows up when your kid, when you want to know why your kids, when you want to know why your kid's teacher is treating your kid in a certain way, it may not just be because that teacher is racist or this, that, or whatever. It's that they're a damaged individual that probably need to talk to somebody.
But you're taking us completely, or you're taking us completely away from the point. You're dragging away from my point to a point that you're trying to make, and I don't refute the point.
No, I'm responding to what Brother Dre said.
I'm talking about both of y'all. Y'all both took my point and drug it to where you wanted to take it. So let me just go back and just reiterate what I'm saying, because I don't refute anything you guys were talking about. Man, listen, I think officers deserve even more than what they're getting in terms of their base pay and incentives, because I got nothing but respect for them. My specific point in my issue is officers caring about outside criticism. So I want to make sure we understand.
It's not just outside when you're indicted.
Outside criticism.
You're at risk of being indicted. That's not
well, then
outside,
you shouldn't do things that are indictable, period. Just like everybody else out here.
It's not just criticism, Nathan. It's a fear
That's what you said.
legal jeopardy, not just criticism.
Don't do things that would put you in legal jeopardy.
It's not so black and white.
It is so black and white, because officers do it all the time. You got plenty of officers that go through their career and they never get indicted for a crime. Plenty of them. Why? Because they know how far to go and when to go so far. And that's like everybody on every job.
Well, I think that that's not entirely true. I think
what's not true that most officers don't get indicted
is that some of those officers. Hey, look, the reality is that some of those officers. I'm about to tell you, some of those officers, just like us, are fortunate enough not to find themselves in a position where their actions are being second guessed. Just like most of us are fortunate enough when we doing things that we probably shouldn't be doing, or questionable things that people see that, or that it's actually caught. So to say that every officer doesn't do something indictable simply says that they may not have found themselves in a situation ridiculous. Where their actions are drawn into question. And sometimes that's a matter of luck more so than necessarily
whether it's luck or not,
right thing.
Whatever they did, they didn't get indicted. Most officers don't get indicted throughout their career. So what are you disagreeing with?
Well, no, I mean, I think your point is maybe even if you do something that's questionable, you don't get indicted.
I'm just saying that I don't believe that most officers are dishonest at their heart. Correct. I don't believe that about officers. I don't think that most officers are corrupt.
Right.
I don't think that most officers.
But you don't have to be dishonest or corrupt to find yourself in a situation where you take an action that somebody will question.
What I'm saying is that most of these officers don't do things that are indictable. so they don't get indicted. Period. They find some way to maneuver through a 20, 25, 30-year police career, and they never end up being indicted for a crime. And I think that's the experience of most officers. So I don't want to overly indict
It's not the
officers.
only. It's not the only thing. They
I'm
can
just
be
not
suspended.
going to
They
assume
could
that
be
officers are criminals.
suspended. They could be suspended for a week or 2 weeks or 5
Then
months.
that's the way it's
Or
supposed to
as
be.
Dre said, they can get sued. Okay,
Then
so it
you
isn't
get
just
sued.
indictments.
If you don't want to get sued, then don't do something that you might get sued for. It's the same rules that everybody else as private citizens have to live with.
But
It's
what
the
if you
same rules.
do everything by the book?
So,
I mean, everything was by the book, and you still get sued. Case in point, you remember.
Welcome to being an adult, because you can do everything right as a private citizen and still find yourself in some mess. That happens.
Well, if you remember, Officer Kevin Brown years ago had tased the 11-year-old girl in Kroger's.
He was wrong for that.
And according to procedure, he did everything right. According to the city procedure, he did it verbatim. She was in the act of a crime and did it verbatim. And the city still got sued. And they walked away with tons of money from stealing at Kroger's.
That's not true. Is that true? I mean, to my recollection, he did not follow the taser policy. And then number one, as a grown man, what kind of grown black man tases an 11-year-old child? He was wrong for that. He was dead wrong for that.
Well, so I think Dre is right on the facts of the thing. A lot of the conversation around that incident when it happened. Yeah, no, I think he is correct. I think the question that came in was exactly what you did. I think the public perception and the public feeling was he shouldn't have tased an 11-year-old kid over a candy bar or something that she stole, and that there was a sense that type of crime didn't justify that use of force. But when you went back and you looked at the city's use of force policy, I think it was consistent. His actions were consistent with what the policy was. He did not step out of bounds on that. Now, what wound up happening is that the public sentiment behind it was so strong that the politicians felt a need to try to do something about it because the public reaction was so strong, because it was exactly like what yours was. It was exactly like what mine was. I wrote a column about it. I wrote a column criticizing the officer and criticizing the policy, saying that they needed to change the policy. That I think the policy, I can't remember what the policy was rated on, that you couldn't tase somebody if they were of a certain weight or something like that. And I was saying that the taser policy should be related to not just those things, but the severity of the crime.
Taser policy. He did. I think he did something wrong. He did not. I just remember having these conversations. I was doing a show at the time, and he did not follow taser policy. He got suspended for like a couple weeks or something like that. So
he got taken off duty with pay, so he didn't get suspended. And the FOP actually backed him to make sure everything was on point.
Well,
so
of course
that's why he still remained a police officer through the process, because according to the procedure he followed it. But it was so much criticism that there was a procedure change through the process of weight. And so it really wasn't so much, let's say, age. If you got 11, 12-year-olds a day that are bigger than you, Nathan.
I'm looking at an article right now, Dre.
On that situation.
But Dre, I'm looking at an article that's dated. This is a Cincinnati Enquirer article that's dated October 30th, 2018, written by Sharon Coolidge, and it talks about the various things that he did wrong. Brown did not turn on his body camera after he deployed his.
That's not the point. That's not the point.
Hold on, let me get it out before you tell me it's not the point, Phil. Let me finish what I'm saying before you tell me it's not the point.
After you, I want to say something.
Absolutely, you can, but I just took one word. Let me jump in. But Brown did not turn. This is an internal affairs investigation found Brown violated 4 police policies. 1, Brown did not turn on his body camera until after he deployed his taser. He did not warn Danisha he was going to use his taser. There's a couple of others. He did not follow proper policy. He did not. It was a big conversation. I remember talking about this for weeks. He did not. And That's
So I
why.
think
That's
so. I
why
think
he
there's.
was.
I think
That's
there's.
why he was subject to discipline. He did not follow the policy.
So I think so, Nathan. I think there's a difference between what you're saying. So I think there's a difference between saying, was he within his police procedure and
He did
firing the
not follow
taser,
policy.
or were there other things that he did that were not
He
consistent?
did
There's a
not
point.
follow
There's a point. There's
policy.
a
The
point.
policy.
So I could be within policy to be able to fire the taser, but I didn't turn on my body camera, which is a violation of policy.
Kevin, this is in the Inquirer.
I understand that, Nathan, but I'm trying. What I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to say,
this is not my opinion,
Nathan. What I'm trying to say to you is that there's nuance in what you're reading.
No,
There's
there isn't.
There's a difference
There
in
is
saying.
no nuance.
There's a
This is
yes,
black
there
and
is.
white.
Yes, there is, Nathan. There's a
Let me
difference
read
in
it to you,
saying
Kevin,
he should.
because you
He
stepped
wasn't.
away for a second.
There's
This is
a
what the
difference.
Inquirer-
There
Can I
is a
finish?
difference, Nathan. Does it say that he shouldn't have fired the taser?
This is what it reads.
No,
from
what
the
does it
Inquirer.
say? No, answer that question. What
It
you're
doesn't
reading,
say.
does it say he shouldn't have fired the taser?
It reads, an internal affairs investigation found that Brown violated 4 police policies.
Okay,
So
was
like
one
I
of those
said,
policies
he
not
did
to fire
not
the
follow
taser?
policy.
Was one of those policies not to fire the taser? Did
One
it
of those
say that he was wrong?
policies
Did it say he violated policy by firing the
said
taser?
that he violated the taser policy because he didn't turn his body camera on until after he fired the taser. It reads that he violated the police taser policy because he did not warn this 11-year-old girl before he hit her with it. He did not follow policy. You can switch it up and call it whatever you want to. The man didn't follow policy.
Here's the thing. Let me say this. This is why they updated even the taser, because they realized that in exigent circumstances, stuff happens so fast that sometimes you ain't got time to push. You had to usually push your body cam twice for it to come on. Now, if you turn on your taser, the body cam already comes on. Just like if you pull out your firearm, the body cam is already activated. And so they changed that whole scope because they realized that in some situations that were hot, you ain't have time to turn on your body cam in the process. And so that's what happened in that situation. And the warning sometimes when they say, here it is, she grabs it, hey, stop. He said stop, but he didn't say taser. Okay, so they gigged him on that. And that's another thing that Brother Phil was talking about, is that they will gig you for those things to say, oh, you violated this policy, but you were still in the scope of a justified tasing.
Can I say something on top of that, if I could? One of the points that Dre made in his previous comment is, if I understand him, is that these charges or accusations against officers are not necessarily decided by some objective authority, which meaning they definitely know what they're doing, as I think Nathan is saying. I think what Dre is saying, and I have seen this for myself, is that the result or the punishment, if any, toward the officer is not just based on his objective conduct. It's what the public wants. And I have been in situations where city council, put pressure, huge pressure on our city manager, who, by the way, ultimately has authority over the police department. And officers got different treatment than I think they should have gotten because of the public's pressure on the politicians. It isn't like you put them in front of just a jury of peers. There's politics that goes into what the result is in terms of what the officer is charged with, if any.
So here's the issue here, and this is what I firmly believe would be fair ways to sort of handle these situations. Is if officers violate policy that's on the books, they should be punished for it. If the officer is following policy, but the result of him following that policy is a result that the public doesn't agree with, right? That officer shouldn't be punished for that. For following.
That's not how it works, though.
What should happen, though,
That's
is if the public pressure is great enough to say, hey, this is a bad policy that shouldn't be in place, then you change the policy. But unfortunately, what happens is people want that officer to be punished. And I think that's where the unfairness comes in, is that if he's following procedure and that's on the books and you just simply don't like what's on the books, you can't punish that officer for that. What you can do is put pressure on the politicians and the city administration to change what's on the books so that the next time an officer does that, it obviously is within violation of procedure. So I get what Phil is trying to say about the public pressure that, and oftentimes, you know, the FOP and the union will wind up, that's why officers wind up keeping their jobs, and why people get frustrated is because the politicians and the politics don't handle it right. Sometimes you got to say to the people, hey, I don't like this either, and this is bad policy, and we got to change the policy. But what only further frustrates people and leads to a narrative is when the politics try to hold an officer accountable for doing something that's within the law. All that does is increase the frustration, because he or she is just going to get their job back when the FOP says, hey, this officer was just following policy. And when they get in front of an objective arbitrator or somebody like that who says, yeah, you know what, this is the city policy and that's what they did. So that's where I think the politics sometimes does a disservice to the community. And in leadership, sometimes you got to just step up and take it and say, hey, this was a bad policy that we got on the books. We can't get this guy this time, but we won't make sure that it's not going to happen in the future. But if you bend the politics that way, it actually winds up costing us more on the other end.
But Dre, from your perspective, what needs to happen to get Cincinnati in a better place when it comes to youth violence?
Actually, what needs to happen is what I call multiple things. Everybody got to get on the same page. I mean, you know, it's like a well-oiled machine, a basketball team that works together. We all got to get on the same page. Know your role. Scottie Pippen understood he was going to get that championship with Jordan. He just had to play his role. So what do you see is that even if we get to the youth before they get to the system, that's going to be hard because they are all over the place and they don't want that audience. But if we get the audience while they're in the justice system, I'm not, or in the Hamilton County 2020, now you have them, you got an audience. Even if they're there for 5 days, 10 days, usually they call the parent and they get out the same day. They get out the exact same day. Even if they stole the car or what have you, they will call their parents up and get out. As soon as we drop them off, they call the parents and they out the same day. So I'm saying if you got the audience, let's rehabilitate the audience immediately, because these kids are, I'm going to be honest with you, brother, they are drugged out. These young juvenile kids, they got more mixes now than we ever thought of when we were younger. And they hide. You took out Dare. Dare used to be a strong advocate in the schools. That's gone. So you don't have any type of drug rehab for our youth, which is key in a component. So the 2020 got to be on point, and our school system, which is failing our kids, is horrible. The school system for our young black kids is terrible today. Withrow, Woodward, man, the police up there all day, every day, trying to deal with fights and nonsense.
I started in juvenile court, and I can't tell you how often a kid commits a crime and he doesn't even spend any time in 2020. Doesn't even spend any time, and he has to get, the guy has to get to the point where he's got 4 or 5 offenses. Okay, then they'll lock him up.
Sounds
okay?
like
the message these kids get is, I don't have to worry about being locked up. They're going to let me out.
Can I just say that, you know, we are going to have to address the reality. I know Nathan ain't going to like this and he's going to say, you know, whatever. But look, in my experience, yes, we have bad kids who do bad things. But for the most part, those kids are a product of their environments. And it starts with the home environments. And I think that more has to be done to provide resources that are going to allow kids to come from more solid homes and environments. And you've got to look at those sorts of supports, because once it gets to the school district, like we like to blame the schools, like, oh, the schools are terrible and that's why our kids are the way that look. The way a lot of these kids are showing up at the schools, you talked about it, Brother Dre, kids fighting in school all day, every day. How is that on the teachers? How is that on the administrators? That is on the kids and the attitudes that they bring with them into the building. That is very, very
kids fight when you and
difficult.
yours, Kevin, did kids fight in your high school?
Not like they do today.
So they
That's
did
for
fight.
damn sure. That's
So
for
they
damn
did fight,
sure.
but they did fight though.
Yeah, man,
Okay.
you might have had a fight. You might have had a fight like
Hey,
once
brother
a
Dre,
month
did
or-
kids
or-
fight in your
I mean,
high
it
school?
wasn't. I mean, look, Nathan. There are
kids fight.
multiple. There
People
are
fight.
multiple fights every single day in a lot of these schools, and it wasn't like that when I was in school. I don't know what school you went to. Maybe you had 3 or 4 fights every day in your school. That wasn't normal where I went to school.
You just didn't know about it. It's 3 or 4 fights in every school. It's all that's school. That's people.
Hey,
Okay.
listen, I served a 3-year sentence at a boys' boarding school, okay? And there weren't hardly any fights, but it was still a miserable experience, just to get that out
was
there.
Well, I think Nathan, what you're doing is part of the problem. You are part of the problem. It's like you always want to make excuses. We got to stop making excuses for the bad behavior of young people, right? Like we want to, like you just want. That's the wussification of America, is the fact that we always want to make excuses for these kids' bad behavior, and we want to try to come up.
I just simply
want to try to blame. No, but you want to try to say, "Oh, were there fights?" Like that's what MAGA does. MAGA does that. You know, that's always their excuse. The whataboutism on whatever. That's exactly what you doing, bro. You like, there were always fights. Like to say that there were always fights doesn't excuse the fact that
don't get mad at me because kids used to fight in your high school, Kevin. Kids fight in high school. Kids fight in middle school.
Not like they fight today, Nathan. That's the thing that you're trying to say. You're trying to make it seem like what's happening today in our schools is always the way that it's been.
But you're misdiagnosing it.
If you look, Nathan, if you talk to anybody who works in school, and you can talk to Brother Dre.
I worked in the school for 5 years.
It ain't, well, bro, look, it ain't normal. Like what's happening in some of these environments is not normal, and it ain't the way that it's always been.
It's the new, nothing is normal anywhere. The earth ain't normal.
Okay. So what you're saying is that should just be accepted, and it's the fault of our administrators and other people because kids can't learn because there's chaos in the building.
Yeah, I mean, if there's chaos in the building and we've got problems, what do you think's about to happen now that state Republicans and federal Republicans are cutting after school programs and cutting money for teachers and assistants? It's about to be turned up. So what I'm telling you is you're misdiagnosing it. It's not
I'm not misdiagnosing it, Nathan. I'm not misdiagnosing it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. It's a resource issue, Kevin.
I
started out by saying it was a resource issue, but you also got to acknowledge the fact that those resource issues got to start with. You got to start creating more wholesome, more solid families.
Resource issue
are coming from,
which is a resource issue.
I said that, brother. I said that at the beginning. I said that at the beginning of my comments. That's where we need to start putting resources in. But it's got to start. It's got to start at the family level because once these kids get to school, once they get, it's too late. You can't affect
anybody's family. That's not where we start. Where we get
it absolutely is families. If you don't think that repairing families is the answer to this,
it costs money to repair families. Is what I'm trying to tell you.
Absolutely.
So we need to start with it. So then it's a money issue. So we need to be talking about who got the money, where is the money, and how do we get the money back to where it needs to be?
It's a money issue from the standpoint of you got to create more jobs. You got to create more jobs that pay livable wages. You got to get people skilled enough to the point where they can work those jobs. Look, people want to be self-sufficient. Most people don't want the handout. They don't want the extra. What they want to do is to be able to make it on their own and pay their own bills. What we have to create more of is opportunities for people to do that, to take care of themselves. And it starts with creating jobs that pay livable wages where I can go to work and take care of my family and afford to get me an affordable house. Like that is the way that you fix the problem. Like part of the problem is not creating more government systems and things that are going to take tax out. It's creating more opportunities for people to be able to take care of themselves.
And that takes government, that takes tax dollars. This is a tax dollar conversation. I mean, because you can't go into somebody's home. But what we can do is say, hey, listen, we are going to invest here or invest here. Ohio Republicans and state officials have decided to take investments for billionaires and stadiums. That could have been after school money. That could have been the DARE program money on the state level. That's what we can do. Because ain't nobody going into somebody's home and raising somebody's kid.
That's not even what I'm saying that's needed. The part of the problem why we feel like that we got to have other people. Look, we don't need other people to take care of other people's kids. What we need to be able to do is put people who have kids in position where they can take care of their own kids. Because the reality is that people are busy. They have enough trying to hold their stuff together, let alone trying to raise somebody else's kid. So what we have to do is begin to invest and try to create environments, not where I can take care of your kids, not where I got to take time out of necessarily feeling obligated to raise your kids, but putting you in a position where you can be a responsible mother or father and take care of your kids because you have a job that pays you gainfully, that you have the ability to live somewhere and provide a stable home for your kid. That is what we need to be investing in. People are perfectly capable of taking care of their own. I don't want to raise your kids. I want you to raise your kids. That's what I want. And I want us to be able to come up with situations and circumstances where we can put people in a position where they can responsibly pay for their own kids and handle their kids.
Let me ask you something, fellas. Why does Walnut Hills High School, which is in the public school system, which is in Evanston, why does that school excel over the Woodwards, the Withrows, the Aikens, the Tafts? Why don't you hear about the same issues of a school got to move? Withrow and Woodward play, they got to move to another location in the daytime because they know shootings are going to happen at night. But you never hear about it from Walnut Hills. So what is different at Walnut Hills versus these other schools? Because at the end of the day, I want to hear what you got to say, but my point is it's standard. They lock a standard down and say, we're not bending our standard and lowering it because low gets low. And I've seen in these schools, they have no standard. Just come in, act a fool, no uniformity no more. They used to wear uniforms. People complained about, they need to show their individuality. And women come in like, little girls come in like Nicki Minaj dressing half naked. So when do we come back and put the same standards in Walnut Hills in other schools?
I want to answer that if I could, what Dre just said. I used to speak, I probably spoke at 30, 40 more schools within the Cincinnati region, both city schools, county schools, private schools. And I'll tell you something, I won't name the schools, okay? But I would say they're both Cincinnati public schools. One, actually, I will say it was the School for Performing Arts. I went there, and when I spoke, those kids were quiet as can be. And they actually asked intelligent questions. Perfect. There's another school I went to where literally the whole class, the kids were just talking and throwing crap and basically paying no attention. And the teacher just sat there. And that is exactly what I think he was talking about standards. One school had a standard that you can't get up and disrupt the class or you're out. Whereas the other school, they didn't have those standards.
See, I think you're projecting. Come on, Phil. You can't get mad at those kids because they didn't want to hear what you had to say. You can't get mad at them.
No, it's because they had no discipline in that.
School. You thought you was gonna bring a one size fit all cookie cutter approach to your presentation, and you didn't realize
my presentation wasn't important. I didn't care.
I'm just saying you have to change per your audience.
No, per your. Come on, we're talking about disruption, not like somebody's taste. I didn't care they weren't paying attention to me and they were shouting and yelling and throwing crap and
what were you talking about?
I didn't care. It didn't affect me, but I felt sorry for those kids because they were in a school that, as Dre said, had very, very low standards, and those standards are set by the school administration, not by the kids.
Yeah, wow. I kind of partially agree. I see what you're trying to say, but look, this sort of ignores the fact.
Now, I'm not minimizing the family
and this
thing.
is what I'm not trying to defend sort of like bad teaching and bad administration, and I hope it doesn't sound that way. But I'm also a realist in that Some of these kids that come in the building, I don't give a damn who you are. They're not listening to you. They're not going to act right. And they're not going to follow any standard.
Then throw them out.
And that's not new.
That's hard to control. That and when you and as Dre said, if you got one kid like that, it's easy to handle that one kid. But what if you got 300 of them in a school that all have that attitude and act that way? You think you can control that? That's easier said than done. They don't make Joe Clarks no more. And the reason why they don't make Joe Clarks no more is because parents and society has done a lot of things to the school district that they said you can't discipline kids in a certain way. You can't talk to kids in a certain way.
That's right.
You've watered down a lot of things. You've watered down a lot of things. You've watered down a lot of things that school used to do, things that work for us. Like that we have now said, well, we're evolved from that. And it's kind of like Dre said. It's the same. Wait a minute, Nathan, let me finish my point. It's kind of like Dre said, when these kids go to court and they know that they're going to get out, that they're not going to be held accountable, they don't care about their behavior. And it's the same way in these schools. These kids have figured out.
Give us some examples. What are you talking about?
What do you mean? What am I talking about?
You said that the parents and the schools have pulled back on discipline that we used to do back in the day. Like what? What examples are you talking about?
Well, I gave you an example.
Now I want to hear Kevin though. I want to hear Kevin.
Dre gave a great example about Walnut Hills.
That doesn't touch what Kevin's talking about.
Hey, back in the day, we used to get swats. Back in the day,
I don't want some stranger swatting my kid.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what parents are saying. That's what parents are saying today.
That's called abuse, Kevin.
Then there used to be. I mean, look,
so
you
abuse.
get kicked out.
So no more domestic abuse.
Okay. I mean, say what you will.
I'm glad they don't domestically.
I'm just saying that there are a lot of disciplinary issues that have gone on. Just like Dre was saying about police officers getting sued. We've seen a lot of situations where educators have gotten sued over various things. Some of it rightfully so, some of it not necessarily the case. And so I think you have a lot of educators who have pulled back in that regard. Look, don't take my word for it. Let's get some teachers on here and talk about. Let's get some teachers on here, or if we got any in the chat.
You don't know
educators can talk to you about.
If you talk to educators, that's not their frustration. Their frustration right now is what's happening state and federally. That's their frustration.
Look, they'll say that's the political part of the argument. But ask those teachers who don't have control over their
there is no teacher
or controlling their schools, or asking them about vaping or weed in the schools. Ask them about the things that are creating the real challenges, and it ain't just.
But I'll tell you one thing: they're not going to say. They're not going to say, "If only I could spank our children, I could spank them." They're not going to say that.
Nathan, I'm not saying that. I'm using that as one of many examples. I'm using that one of many examples that you could probably point to, and I can't pull them all off the top of my head right now, but that's what I'm saying. I guarantee you, if you got a teacher on here, that they would tell you what things have been done,
sure
what things that they're worried about, what things that they don't do that they could do because they worried about getting sued.
Maybe. I'm sure they could. I'm sure if a teacher came on, they would give a teacher's perspective for sure. But man, that's been a good conversation. But I want to switch it up. Let's talk about what's happening with CBS. They're ending the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. So 3 days ago, he went on like his comedic rant. He was talking about the CBS, basically, in my opinion, cave to the Trump administration. There's some more big business behind this. The parent company wants to do a merger. The parent company, the chairwoman, is a Trump supporter, and she's probably sympathetic.
I don't know if she's a Trump supporter or she just needs Trump support because he controls the FCC.
Well, she's a Trump supporter.
Whether she's a Trump supporter or not, she was her motivation was clear, as you just said.
Yeah, it was very clear that she, again, this is just my opinion. It could, I don't know if it's true or not, but people are saying that, Colbert the whole show was nixed because of a little bit comedic rant he went on 3 days ago. He made it funny. He made his point, but I think he made it funny, but apparently he ruffled some feathers. But to me, this is just another example of how the Trump administration is winning against his war to bend the knee of the national media, the media in general. To
Yeah.
me, this is a net win for Donald Trump
Yeah.
and a net
And
loss.
by the way,
for
Colbert
everybody.
always makes fun
Can I
of
finish what I'm
Trump
saying?
every day.
Can I finish?
Every day.
I'm almost done. So as I said, this is a net win for Donald Trump, and to me, a net loss for everybody else. That's just how I look at it. But what do you think?
I completely agree with what Nathan said. I've talked about on this show before about what's happened in Hungary and Turkey and other countries that are led by autocrats who were elected but gradually turned their country into an autocracy or a dictatorship. And they're also the leaders who Trump has said he most admires. What happened in Hungary is that Viktor Orban got in and he got his rich friends to buy up all the media. Okay, so there's now no opposition media. And obviously he also put pressure on them. That's exactly what's happening here. There was the lawsuit, the ridiculous lawsuit about that. They just edited a clip of Kamala Harris. Trump sues for billions of dollars on a suit that no judge would have even let in court. Okay, and what happens? They give him $16 million because they want to merge. They want to merge, as Nathan said, Paramount with whomever. And then there was the George Stephanopoulos one. They did the same thing. I forget, is he ABC? I forget what network he is. But it was the same kind of thing. A frivolous accusation against him because he said Trump was liable for sexual assault. Well, he was held liable for sexual assault. So this is a scary thing. What we're seeing here is that, and Nathan was right, they are pressuring the media, the owners of the media, and who they can push the buttons on to get a media that is scared to criticize Donald Trump.
Yeah, he may be trying that, but it's not going to work. I mean, I think what's in my mind,
working.
Well, he's had a couple of instances where he's won some settlements, but that has not muted, nor stopped the larger.
No, that's after 60 Minutes. Look at 60 Minutes. Same thing.
Yeah, but again, winning a case and getting a settlement is not the same thing as saying that Donald Trump has successfully muted criticism of him in the media. I think anybody who does an internet search on any given day, Phil, would know that that's hyperbole. Okay, I'm not questioning, that we shouldn't be concerned about some of the things that we're doing. But I think, look, let's not overstate the success that Donald Trump is having. Like, he's not shutting down criticism or questioning of him.
Well, he got Steve Colbert off.
Last time I checked, MSNBC is still on TV, still doing what they do every day. And, the Inquirer and the New York Times and other newspapers are still reporting what they want to report.
What about the Washington Post?
So here's what I'm saying. This is the same thing. If we're going to be critical of Republicans, you can't turn around and do the same sort of thing with the same kind of fear mongering and hyperbole. I'm not saying don't be concerned. I'm not saying don't be concerned. Don't keep an eye on it. Not that we shouldn't even challenge and question some of these corporate heads and some of the things that they're doing. I agree with all of that. But what I'm not going to sit here and do is overstate and say,
okay, what about the Washington Post?
Donald Trump is taking over the media. That's a gross overstatement.
Los Angeles Times, two major newspapers, one of the most famous in the country, Washington Post. Both of them had editorials written to endorse Kamala Harris, but the owners, because they were scared of what Trump could do to them, they nixed those editorials. Isn't that a pretty dangerous situation to be in?
Absolutely. It's a dangerous situation, but if it was a situation that you would have thought would have changed the result of the election, look, we go back and forth in the industry all the time about the effectiveness of the newspaper editorial anymore these days, particularly as it relates
that's
to
not the point.
Yeah, I get that that's not the point, Phil. But what I'm saying is you're talking about one editorial at one newspaper. How many other newspapers wrote editorials and published them?
What do you think the message, Kevin? What message are all the other people in the media getting from what CBS did, what ABC did on Stephanopoulos with the Washington Post and the LA Times? What message are all the other?
I think the broader message against the journalism industry is that they were cowards, not that everybody else is going to kowtow.
Yeah, what about
and go
the
along
Iowa?
with what they're doing? There's broad criticism in the industry of those decisions. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you're presenting this like this is some imminent collapse of the media. Look, I say this all the time. America is different in so many different ways from a lot of these other, quote unquote democracies that have fallen in. Like, yeah, do we need to be cognizant of it? Do we need to fight against it? Yes, but to say that America is anything like Germany or Turkey or anything like that,
I'm saying it's moving in that direction.
Apples to oranges.
It's
the
moving in that
histories are not the
direction.
same. The histories are not the same. The people are not the same. The institutions are not the same. And the fact of the matter is, none of those countries had a media that's nearly as strong or nearly as entrenched as U.S. media is. U.S. media is probably the best and the strongest on the planet. And Trump is gonna do what he's going to do. But look, let's not take it too far. That's all I'm saying.
And Brother Jay, what do you think?
I think, man, that we're in a world of trouble. I mean, this world is in a chaotic state. We don't know what's going to happen from one thing to the next. And I wouldn't be surprised if Trump, while he's in for these 4 years, he puts a entire dictatorship on everything. We see it moving in that direction. Some of the things that we said would never happen is happening right in front of our face, and nothing is being done about it. And so you would have to just be completely blind or just have some false hope to think that it's going to change anytime soon. That while he's in office, he's going to make sure that it's going to be extremely difficult for anybody to move anything out of any situation. So I'm not surprised anything that comes from that administration and what I hear.
Yeah, my friend Kevin, man, we need people like Kevin. We need people like Kevin in these days and times. We need people that's going to lift us up and give us hope and make us feel like, we can get through this. But I got to tell you, my friend, it's almost as if, you, Kevin, walked outside your house, you look up and you see that it's burning, but it's just a little fire. So you're like, no big deal, right? And
that's not what I said.
And I think what Phil and I and perhaps Dre see is I see a fire, and fire burns and consumes. And unless somebody puts that fire out, it's just going to spread. And right now, bringing it back to what we see in terms of Donald Trump's power over the media, there's a blaze that's burning slowly, and I don't see anybody able to put it out. I don't see anything.
And that's the problem. That's the problem right now.
It's not a problem. It's just a different
okay. So it's my problem. This is the problem that I have with you.
You got hope.
This is the problem that I have with you and Phil. And what you don't realize is you dump gasoline. That little fire that you talk about that you see as a big blaze. With the way you guys talk about it, you dump gasoline on
Absolutely
it.
not.
Because what it does,
we're warning about it.
No. Let me finish my thought. Because what it does is it lends to more people having the attitude of hope, already hopelessness, that we heard Brother Dre just express. Like, oh, I don't see it getting, and like that's the kind of attitude. That's the kind of attitude that's counterproductive, that gives in to dictatorship. When you think that they've already won.
No, that's not.
No, but that's how you present it. That's how y'all present it. Every time we talk about this, listen to Phil talk about it, Kevin. The media's already been co-opted by Trump. And this is how you guys present it every time we get into these conversations. And my challenge, when I try to come back and say, not that, and I say this every time, and maybe it just doesn't get heard. I say, not that we shouldn't be concerned about it, not that we shouldn't be vigilant about it, but it is not as bad as you are saying it is.
I know it's just a small fire. I know. I just said it. It's just a little bitty fire. It's just you know
what happened. Y'all all have heard the story of Chicken Little, right? This is what I'm trying to get y'all to stop being.
We've all heard the story of Noah's Ark.
Chicken Little. Because what happened with Chicken Little? Right? What happened with Chicken Little? Everything was a raging inferno to Chicken Little, and so by the time it really was burning, nobody wasn't listening to Chicken Little because every little fire was an inferno.
The story called Noah's Ark? Have you heard the story called Noah's Ark?
I have heard the story called Noah's Ark.
He's a preacher. Of course he has.
Brother Nathan, I
right,
was
then.
about to go there with it. I said, because Kevin is a biblical man, and Noah preached for 120 years, but this was deep. He was building while he was preaching. He didn't stop because he was preparing,
I didn't
knowing
say that.
that flood is coming. Hey, the flood is coming. The flood is
Nothing
coming.
what I
But
said.
if you can't sit back and not prepare yourself for what may happen, you can hope for the best,
Here's
but
the difference.
prepare for the worst.
Here's the difference. So since y'all took it there, I'm gonna go ahead and take it to that eventuality. So nothing that I said.
Are we talking about Noah's Ark of the country?
Wait a minute. Nothing that I said is
Noah's Ark of the
inconsistent.
country?
Nothing that I said is inconsistent with what you just said or the story of Noah's Ark. But here's what I'm not gonna do. See, in the story of Noah's Ark, what God plans to be inevitable ain't nothing you can do about. You best be prepared to deal with the eventuality of what God says. Donald Trump is not my God. So therefore, what he's saying and what he's doing, I'm not taking as an eventuality. I'm not taking as a done deal. So if we want to follow that metaphor out, yeah, you're right. We gotta keep building. We gotta be prepared, right? But Donald Trump is not God, and he is not inevitable.
Yeah, none of us are saying he is, and that's not the position he is in this hypothetical.
No, but y'all talking like what Donald Trump is doing is inevitable. I'm not accepting that.
No, I'm just talking about when your neighbors are telling you that there's a problem coming, you should listen. That's what the core
Who said
of that
I'm not
is.
listening? I'm just saying. Hey, look, let's. Here's what people,
I know.
Here's what people need to hear. Yes, be wary, watch, but let's not overstate what's happening because the danger in that.
No, let's not understate.
I'm not understating it. Look, I subscribe to the Stockholm paradox. You know, that you got to be hope for the best, but be very real about what the reality is. But that's what I'm saying. Have your statements based in what the facts and what the reality are. Don't overstate.
They are.
Y'all overstate.
We're not. No, we're not.
I guess in your mind you're not. You know, in my mind you are.
Hey, what did Matthew 24 say? It said there are gonna be wars, rumors of wars, things gonna happen, and it's birth pains for more to come. So biblically, even in Matthew 24, it's telling you it's more stuff that's gonna come, and Trump's administration is gonna bring a lot of heat in this situation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what we're gonna find out, and I learned this from just observing human beings, and Dre, hopefully you'll back me up, but if not, it'll be a good conversation nonetheless, because I think that police officers, again, I got nothing but respect for police officers. I'm super tough on anybody that does bad to anybody. I don't care what the profession is. You show me somebody that's supposed to be taking care of the elderly and they're off for their job, and I hit the roof on all of that. But I think police officers, to be a good one, and I'm sure you have this skill, brother, whether you were born with it or you just developed it over a 30-year career, which is just amazing. I'm just so happy, like you said, man, that you came out of it with all your legs. You're here with us, and I'm very happy that. But to see you like that, and in retirement, which is always a good thing. I love to see Black people retire. Love it with pensions. I love it. But you understand people. You start to understand people. And in my observation, people are really not that strong. It don't take a whole lot to topple something like this over. It don't take a whole lot. People think it's going to be like some big thing, and then they're going to fire right. They're going to put some kind of skywriting that says now you're in a dictatorship. It's not going to look like that. It's going to look just like what we see right now. And people, if you put pressure on them about their family, about their livelihood, they will snap like a twig in a second. People are not that strong. That's why we turn to God. That's why we turn to God. We are not that strong.
I think you say that, Nathan, but I think if you look at history over time, that doesn't back that up. I think in good times, yes, people are weak. They ain't looking for no smoke. They will let some things slide. But my belief and it's based on historical belief, in every instance in this country where the back's been up against the wall, whether you talk about the Civil War, whether you talk about the Civil Rights Movement, whether you talk about any point, 9/11, whenever this country and our back and we've absolutely been up against the wall and had to make a moral choice, we've made the right choice. And I tend to believe that,
that was our grandfathers. We're not them. We're not them.
It's us too.
Believe me,
It's
my
us,
grandfather
it's us
came
too.
from the South.
Look, I
ain't built like
guarantee you right now, Nathan, if somebody rolled up on your house and you had to defend your family, stuff would come out of you that you didn't even think was there. You may not think,
That's not the point.
but it is the point, because it will be your family if it gets to that point, and it gets to that point in this country. People are going to stand up and defend their family, their territory. You may not be able to see it now because you're not in that. We're not in that.
By the time most people stand up, you won't have anywhere to move to. You ain't going, man, Dre, will you tell them this idea that because you got some weapons at home, that you're going to be able to stand up to at least your local police force? I've told these people, you ain't got no chance against the Cincinnati police, let alone the National Guard. You have no chance. If they roll up in your house and say, you coming out, you are coming out, either consciously or unconsciously, but you coming out. So this idea that you can defend against the government is a lie. You ain't got no defense.
You know, I'm thankful that that our founding fathers didn't feel that way during the Revolutionary War.
They didn't have automatic weapons.
Nathan, it don't matter. It's all relative to the time frame. The weapons that people had at that time, it was the same thing. Like you're going up against the king. You're going up against the king, the most powerful ruler in the world, a little upstart nation. Don't tell me what people can't do when they set their mind to rising up. You're talking about a people. You're talking about a people that took on a government without weapons. Black people without weapons and did an uprising.
We aren't them.
Okay,
that was your grandfather.
Maybe that ain't you, and maybe that's my frustration. Maybe that's my frustration is that maybe that's not you. But I think there are a lot of people out there that are like that.
Why would that frustrate you? It's not me.
No, I mean, it's frustrating to me because I don't think that way. I tend to think that if you care about your livelihood, your family, or your country, you're gonna fight. You ain't gonna just sit back and take it. And that's my thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's my thing.
I'm not saying people won't fight. I'm talking about your propensity or your likelihood of actually winning against a modern day military.
What difference do it make if I fight and I don't win? Which would I rather do?
That's the whole point.
Which would I rather do? Fight, die, and lose for a righteous cause, or live under tyranny?
But that is the whole point. The whole point is start now before you get there. Because when you get there, there is no turning back.
I'm not saying don't fight, but what I'm saying is that exactly what you talk about. People ain't them forefathers. Look, if the message that you send to people is that we've already lost, if people are in fact soft as you say, Nathan,
that's not the message.
But that's how it comes across.
That's not how it comes. That's not what me and Phil are talking about. Me and Phil are just simply saying that what we see looks real bad, and people should be very alarmed about it. That's what we're saying.
My father used to say, his expression was, don't think it can't happen here. In other words, people who I'm saying this is you, Kevin, but people who put their faith that this country's always going to be free, always going to have free speech, always going to be a democracy. No. There's no guarantee. My father wasn't just talking about like Nazis, and he was talking about how a country can change, and all what we're saying is that is the direction we're going now.
Yeah, and here's what I would say. And this is where I think is what's overstated is the number of people in this country who you think would. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people like Trump and others who have their designs on trying to plot something like that. But you even see it now to a certain degree that there are people who are starting to wake up to the con of Donald Trump. It may not be the numbers that you want it to be, but slowly but surely every day, and it's frustrating for those of us who saw the con all along. But slowly but surely, there are more Americans who are waking up to that. And I just don't believe that there is a majority of people in this country that would sit back idly and go.
There doesn't have to be a majority to have somebody take over.
I don't even think that it's. I mean, I don't know.
Here's what I would say. I would say that we are so like gentrified and polarized. We're so polarized. I'm gonna say it again. There are good people that vote Republican, good people that vote independent. There's good people that didn't vote. And I would just say that we got a lot of people out there that want to separate us and divide us along racial lines or geographic lines or historical lines or whatever. I think we got a whole lot more in common than we don't. And I think that that's the only way that we're going to stop our country moving in a direction that may be unpleasant. I mean, I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, I don't have no hate and malice in my heart towards somebody because they're Republican or because you voted differently. That's why I've always told you, when we see these videos and we see people saying like, man, I lost my job, but I voted for Trump. I have empathy for them. They don't deserve that. And I hope that we can return to that empathy and that common humanity. I hope so. But Dre, you've been on these streets, man. What do you see? What do you think?
I mean, I understand the power that the police have. And there was one thing that, even when the Hinton case blew up and the people were saying, oh man, that you take ours, we're going to take yours, and, let's go out. I was telling people, I said, look, what if every crazy damn white cop just starts shooting every black person that was on the street? I said, you going to set yourself up that you got the right president in place that'll go ahead and talk with martial law and just be willing to hook you up. I said, you outnumbered because, I said, y'all, black people are what I call, they get emotional for the moment, but they don't stick together for the journey. And I done seen how, say, just white America, the police force operates. And if they really click that button, they'll shut down a whole neighborhoods in moments. And that was a good example with the Nazi thing, and I call that, they just wanted to test the climate. That here it is, all of a sudden you got Nazis in Lincoln Heights, and then what happened? Alicia Reese brought up a lot of stuff about what was going on, and then now you hear what? Crickets. They knew half the guys that was there, and guess what happened? Nothing. Was anybody indicted? No. So at the end of the day, man, the police power is heavy loaded.
And think about
Dre, let me ask you this question, Dre. Let me just say this is a hypothetical scenario. So you was a police officer, a lot of other people who were police officers as well. Let's just say hypothetically, just in the city of Cincinnati, things went bad. Let's just say we divided, along political lines in Cincinnati, and somebody gave the order, hey, Cincinnati police is martial law. You see Democrats, black people on the street, shoot them up. Do you think everybody in the police department would have gone along with that?
No,
every officer, huh?
No.
So there would have been some officers on the force that would have said, that's bull crap. I'm not going to be involved in that. And if necessary, if I got to arm up and strap up and go against y'all, I would do that.
There's a far and few between. And I'm gonna tell you right now, that's why you always hear me riding the Sentinel organization, because you got all these black issues that come across in the city dealing with the police, and the Sentinel organization is crickets. Their president, Stuart Isaacs, don't say nothing about no issues that are going on. And you have all these things that have happened, just like with Captain Danita Pettis, the only black female commanding captain we have. And she got attacked not just by the Sentinels, but by the chief of police and got terminated. And did they stick together? No. So I'm telling you, man, when the fire hits the fan, you look behind you like, where my backup? And they gone. You know how it go, Nate. You like, man, I got some back. And you look and it's like, oh shoot, they talked a good game. But now who's sitting here standing with me when time goes? Because Brother Kev, we done talked about it. Like with the beard, I started that back in '96 with Lieutenant Taylor and Sergeant McCray. I was one of the first ones to wear a beard. And here we are all these years later, and these same clowns that didn't support us, I was terminated. I was taken off duty. I was placed in different assignments. Why? Because I was about change, and I still stood strong. So we don't have people having your back like that in the city, man. That's why I get it. It's only going to be a few. That's why it's the 300. It's a low number because everybody won't have your back when it's time.
What do you think about, I asked you earlier about just the fragility of humans. I'm not saying that people are weak. I'm just saying that people are not as strong and they're easily manipulated when you bring into like economics, like a mortgage, food, Netflix. And then people have children. People with children are easily pliable. It's easy, man. My children, I'll do anything for them. I'm sure most people are like that. And that's what I mean by we can't trust that somebody else is going to stand up because they might be dealing with stuff and they just can't. And so many people are dealing with stress and uncertainty. It's just not really I don't get a lot of good vibes out there from the energy I'm getting. I think a lot of people are nervous, and those kind of people are easily manipulated. When people are afraid, they're easy to manipulate.
Yeah, I think it's like the Obama said, or Barack Obama said, man, people gonna have to toughen up. You can't sit back. You can't sit back and be worried about democracy going away. And again, to use your terminology, Nathan, be a wuss. If you're gonna be a wuss in these days and times, then you're gonna get what's coming for you. But you're gonna have to toughen up, be ready to knuckle up, even. Like that's where I'm at with it. Like that's where I'm at with it. If it comes to that. Like if you are one of those people that's just gonna sit back and you scared, and then don't say anything, right? Like I'm tired of hearing the people that's complaining but want to, no, you can't have that attitude and say you're concerned about democracy. You got to be prepared to step up in whatever way with your voice, resources, sacrifice, whatever. We don't know what we might be. To your point, if it really does get that bad, we don't know to what extent that we are going to be called up to. So if you are not prepared for that, then just keep your mouth closed. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to see you on the internet. I don't want to hear all this. I'm worried about democracy. Nathan, just like you said about the police officers, like you said about the police officers, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that
different context.
You ain't voting. If you ain't voting, if you ain't using what powers that you got right now, I'd rather just not hear from you.
I want to hear from you. I hear what you're saying. I feel you in a lot of ways, but at this point, even if you're somebody that didn't vote, like if you wake up like, oh man, this looks really bad, and now you are woke, which is a good thing, I'm cool.
But that's making a decision.
You form a MAGA and you wake up
off your couch and do something. But if your plan is, I didn't vote in the last election and I'm not going to vote in the next election, nah, bro. I mean, I really ain't trying to hear what you got to say. Now, if you didn't vote in the last election and you looking around and you like, yeah, I got to get active. Okay, I'm willing. That's what I'm talking about. But if you're not willing to get into the fight in some way, shape, or form, all of this hand wringing and complaining and everything you're doing, what's it for?
Well, here's another example of what I'm talking about. So now Gavin Newsom is saying that California might counter Texas on redistricting. This is how gangster they are with it. So because of all the bad publicity and press that Texas and Republicans across the United States have been dealing with, in Texas, Greg Abbott said, and meanwhile, they're still doing rescue and recovery for the flood. There's still bodies that haven't been recovered. So that's going on. And the governor of Texas said, you know what? This is bad for us. We're going to do an emergency session so we can gerrymander the state to make sure that Republicans don't lose elections.
No. Worse, to get them like 5 extra seats.
To get them 5 extra, thank you so much. To get them 5 extra seats, not just maintain, but to further solidify their power. They've been doing that in states like Ohio for decades now. Gavin Newsom says, okay, if you do that, we'll do the same thing in California. We might pick up 7 seats. Gentlemen, this is what I'm talking about. This only leads to one direction. And there's one side, and I don't need to tell you what side it is. There's one side where you have elements that actually want to divide the country. There's people out there that want another civil war. And sadly, very sadly, and God, I wish this does not happen, but very sadly, this kind of stuff that was happening with Texas and California, it just leads us in that direction. But what do you think? Should Gavin Newsom retaliate and pick up?
Let me tell you something. I think that even though I understand the reasoning, and let's be honest, he's trying to play up to the Democrat electorate by being tough so he can get elected president next time or get the nomination. But I think his action that he's talking about is the worst thing possible, because basically people are lowering themselves to that MAGA level. Okay, he's basically saying, okay, these guys are doing something unethical and really something that is not only polarizing, but basically something that just is very harmful to our country, which is gerrymandering. So he's saying, oh, we'll do the same thing. No, I don't agree with that.
So here's the only challenge that I would say with that, Phil, is that I know Ohioans have spoken, and I think what Ohioans have said is probably pretty consistent with the rest of the country. So if you look at what voters have said, or the majority of voters have said, they do not support gerrymandering. You know who supports gerrymandering? The politicians, the entrenched incumbents who don't want to
right.
lose their positions.
Whichever party
and they have said, particularly, wait a minute, let me finish. Particularly Republican politicians have said, we don't care what the voters say and what they're wanting. We're going to do what we want to do anyway. Yeah, so what I would say in that type of environment where you have one group who has said, screw what the public wants, we're going to do what we have to say. The calculation that you have to make, I think, on the Democratic side is not necessarily about lowering yourself to what they're doing. This is a defensive posture, right? I have no choice. If my quote unquote, for lack of a better word, I won't even use it, I'll say opponent. If my opponent has decided they're not going to listen to the group and they're going to do whatever, and by them doing that, it's setting the field in their favor, and they're not going to stop. At some point in time, you have to say that in order to counter that, we might have to take some measures that may not be measures that we like or agree with, but if we don't, they've already shown they're not going to stop, and the people can't stop them because the people have already spoken and they've ignored them. So at some point, you got to adjust the strategy and say, this isn't what we would like to do, but this is what is necessary to stop the opponents from roll, because they're going to do it everywhere that they possibly can. And we know, we've seen Republicans do this. If it happens in one place, they're going to do it all over. And they are trying to stack the board or stack the deck in a way that has neutralized Democrats. And what Democrats got to wake up for, if you don't want to wake up to every day being like the last 6 months where Republicans control everything and you can't stop it, you got to come off of this high horse of what you think is morality. We're not playing on that. You're not playing with opponents who are playing moral games. And if you continue to try to play that, eventually at a certain point, you're going to have played yourself out of the game with the rules. And so do I like it? No. But do I say Democrats might have to start thinking about these types of plays because the Republicans are not going to stop.
Yeah, nothing to think about in my end. Nothing to think about. And again, a lot of what you said right there is exactly what Democrats and Gavin Newsom and whoever else does this should explain it to people. Tell them what you're dealing with. Tell them the difference. Like, yeah, absolutely. When your opponent plays unfair, then you got to play unfair. To bring back up an example I brought, it was one of the first examples I brought up in which everybody told me I was dead wrong. If you get into a fist fight with your opponent and they bring out a weapon, then you're going to bring out a weapon too if you got it. And that's where the Democrats are. And I just hate it. I really do, because it's sending us down the wrong direction. Our issue is not Texas versus California. That's not our issue. But there's some people that want to make it an issue. So yeah, Gavin Newsom has to do what Gavin Newsom. Democrats got to do what Democrats got to do. Republicans got to do what Republicans got to do. And I think the people are losing, unfortunately. Well, that's the saddest part.
And it's because of gerrymandered districts where politicians don't have to. Like I said, this is an important point that I don't want people to miss. Is that most Americans, most Ohioans agree that what's going on in Texas and even what's going on here in Ohio, they don't agree with it. But the Republicans have said, to hell with what y'all think. We're going to do what we do anyway. Now, what is incumbent upon that is for Republicans to say that is not acceptable. And that is the part of the conversation that somehow or another, the Republicans who don't like it And Democrats have to be able to have a conversation that says the only way this really changes is not referendums, is not all of this. Because here's another thing that the Republicans are doing in Ohio with the Supreme Court. One of the Supreme Court justices, Pat Fisher, whose term doesn't expire for another 4 years, he's decided to run against the lone Democrat that's on the Ohio Supreme Court so that he can get rid of her. So he's going to run in 2026 against the Democratic Supreme Court candidate so that they can have an all-Republican Ohio Supreme Court. His term ain't even up yet. This is the type of stuff that they're doing.
Yeah. Listen, I've told you guys before. You guys remember the Harlem Globetrotters, right?
I remember the Washington Generals.
Yeah.
Right. And they used to play against the Washington Generals, and it was a big show, right? I went to it a couple times. My mother took me down to Cincinnati Gardens. It was fun, right? Mellow Lot Lemon. It was so great. But we already knew what the outcome was. So basically, the Washington Generals were basically the bad guys. They were going to lose every single time, but they went through this whole competition just for the sake of it. That's what the Republican Party is trying to do to the Democrats, to reduce them to the Washington Generals, where we go through it. We throw a little ball, bounce the ball off your head. Oh, we were down by 10, we win by 50. That's what you're looking at. And this has been a long-term plan. Right? They've been writing about this out in the open for decades. But, people just don't think things like this are possible. So they're playing for keeps. I wonder what the advantage is. Like, what is it that you can do in Ohio with 3 votes that you can't do with 2 votes? There must be something procedurally or something that they want to do. And somebody should investigate that because I'm doing other things. But that's just where my mind goes. But Dre, what's your take on it? What do you think?
Said, the Democrats played a game where they didn't expect Trump to come this hard and assume what wasn't going to happen. So they played around with it. And that's why I told people from the beginning. I said Trump was going to win. They were like, "You crazy. Look at before they voted him out." I said, "Watch." I said the Democrats is playing games with the American people, and they wasn't going to be ready for no black female who to come in office where she thought she had it wrapped up. And next thing you know, people were fact checking her whole process. The Democrats came weak, they came sad, and all of a sudden Trump looking like the savior for everybody, and then all of a sudden he gets voted in. And that's what I say, don't ever underestimate your opponent. Don't do it, because at the end of the day, votes she thought she was going to get, she didn't get. And the women, white women, I'm going to say this, wasn't ready, as well as black men, for no black female to be president. So they better come correct this next round and get somebody in office that's not going to be playing nice guy with Trump.
It's got to be a white man.
That's what I was going to say. The one thing that I would disagree with Brother Dre on is not that Donald Trump was so great. It's Kamala Harris had to overcome a late start. She had to overcome sexism, racism, misogyny, a whole bunch of things that she had, and that's just too much to overcome. I mean, look, anybody with any reasonable modicum of common sense would say that there's no way Donald Trump should have won that election. And had the Democrats won, a serviceable white man against him, he would not have won. Donald Trump would not have won. I stand by that. It wasn't that he won because he was so great. I think people looked at it and they was like, he's kind of the devil that we know, and we don't really trust Kamala or don't like her for whatever reason. And again, I will just say, people act like, yes, Donald Trump won all the swing states, but he didn't really win them by like a large margin, right? Like there are just a few thousand votes in each of these swing states that if they go for Kamala Harris's way, maybe she wins that election. So I think people get caught up in like Trump had some kind of mandate. The election, even with everything Kamala Harris was dealing with, was a lot closer than people often give credit to, because they listen to what Donald Trump says. Of course, he's going to say he won, by the biggest landslide, and everything that Donald Trump does is the biggest thing ever. So I think what the Democrats have to do is they got to find them, a credible white man that they can put up. I hate to say that in these days and times, but that's what they're going to have to do, if they want to challenge.
Guys, excuse me. Guys, I got to jump off. I do want to, if you don't mind, welcome Dre to the crew. And I want to, if I could, thank Nathan for teaching us this new word, wussification. I intend to incorporate that into my rhetoric and my repertoire.
Oh, God. Translation, you're going to throw it back in my face as much as you can whenever you can.
Of course. All right. Have a nice weekend, guys.
All right, Phil.
Hey, Phil, thanks so much for you too, bro.
Hey, I'm going to hit up a couple of comments in the chat that people said. So Kevin said, no, Kevin A., that wasn't it. The people who showed up for Biden stayed at home. Yeah, that's. I mean, I don't think we're arguing that folks didn't stay home, right? I think some of them stayed home for a lot of the reasons that we said. Kamala Harris wasn't Joe Biden, right? She's a black woman, and so a lot of people just weren't going to come out from that. And then somebody else said, he shouldn't have beat Hillary Clinton, but he did. Absolutely true. I stand by this. I say Hillary Clinton was probably the most prepared and qualified candidate, male or female, to run for the presidency of the United States. I mean, she'd been around for a while. She was probably running certain things even when Bill Clinton was the president of the United States. I mean, Hillary Clinton was an accomplished politician. She was her fault was people liked her less than they liked Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was a fresh face back then, and people were kind of like, well, let's give a businessman, the outsider, a shot, right? Again, Trump wouldn't have beat Obama, or he wouldn't have beaten the more established candidate that had more likability than he did in 2016. He just happened to get, again, in another close election, a candidate who was less liked than he was.
He beat women, which is Freudian in not a good way, considering his track record. Yeah, in not a good way. Again, that doesn't make me. I take no pleasure in saying that. But Dre, I want to get the floor to you, man. I'm not going to keep you guys. I really appreciate. I know you both are very busy men on a Friday. I appreciate you, but I want to give you the last word. Of course, Kevin, jump in whenever you want if you want to say something. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, man, and I'm gonna talk about it. Next week on Thursdays, Curse Breaker 300 Thursdays is. People don't understand that we have right now the wrong chief of police in place. And so when you look at this monster, you got the mayor, you got the city manager, and then you got the chief, and then it starts to trickle down to council and public safety. But Chief Thigi, number one, if they was about to do a vote of no confidence on her because they did not want her to be chief in the first place. And this is what the community needs to understand and represent, that when she flew off the cuff and came out with the finding on the hit and shooting, then you had the coroner's office come in and say, well, I don't know where she got that info. This is part of the reasons why we don't need a person like that in place. And then she comes off the cuff and fires people and does punishments. And all this stuff has been documented. Her own nephew was internal affairs as a sergeant. He's still in there as a lieutenant. And I want people to understand, the listening audience, that when you have an individual that the police officers didn't even want in place, white or black, the FOP has stated that, and she still becomes the chief because there were others at the time, Colonel Davis, that they wanted in place. You trying to tell me that Thigi from the West Side and her connections was the best one for this job as chief of police? And now you're seeing even how Sarah Hanger has started to attack the chief and the leadership. So I'm going to tell you right now that the city won't change and see different circumstances occur, even in our black neighborhoods, until Chief Thigi is out of there and the mayor and the city manager came to all the districts to check the climate. Who did we want as chief? And we told them not Chief Thigi, and she chose her anyway. Then now you're seeing the problems that we have in the city and the things that are going on.
So that's some, you said a lot there, Brother Dre, which that could be a whole other pod, which maybe next time you on, we can
Let's
delve into some of these issues. Man, that's that was a lot right there. I don't even know. I kind of don't even really, David. I'll let you go first, but I need to process.
Yeah, we can't. We got to hold you. Yeah, I got a question to ask you now. So, not getting into anything ad hominem in terms of personal. I don't want to do that, but just as a citizen, I'm concerned. And you're a former police officer, recently retired. So I'm reading this a couple of different ways. Number one, you're recently retired and you're saying this so close after. It seems like this is something that you really wanted to say, which gives it a lot of credibility on just a human level for me. But can you tell me, like, in terms of like the job of police chief, nothing personal, what is the concern that you've heard or seen?
Well, concern is that when you have your nephew in internal affairs, to be able to, look at paperwork and things and to give you an inside scoop, that's a conflict already in the people that are put in these positions. Two, when have you seen the chief in the community? When have you seen her in the Avondales walking around? When have you seen her in the Evanston's and Winton Place? When have you actually seen her relate to anybody black? And this is the same chief that fired our only black female captain. So we got to look at the entire package, that when we put these chiefs in place, that are they for everyone in the community that you can relate to. Can't nobody relate to the community to our current chief of police. And there was issues that consistently happened on the job that she was involved and in charge with. And this is why the city manager would be involved as well, because she was the one who pointed her out. And when have we known in politics, and I told people my 30 years, I've never had politicians and the city manager come into roll calls asking who do we want to be the next chief.
Yeah. So Dre, let me ask you this. You were an officer for quite some time, and this always comes up, particularly when we have like a police chief opening like that, this notion of black chief versus white chief, male versus female. I'll ask you two questions. One, how much does that matter on some level to you guys in the rank and file? Like, do you look at it that way, or is it really more just about the quality of the individual or the character of the individual? And then the second part of the question is, in your time there, in your estimation of the chiefs that were in 10 years that you were there, who did the best job?
Well, it's definitely quality, because Lieutenant Colonel Davis was our first choice, and she had left. Being black or white, Chief Craig did a phenomenal job when he was here. Chief Craig was able to come in. He was a very, very outspoken people person. He went to different communities. He changed the uniform that you see today. And that was a very interesting argument, because we always wore, if you remember, the white shirts and the blue pants, and he changed it to the dark blue shirts, more khaki pants, to be comfortable for the officers. And we always used to wear the white hats, and that was a big thing. And he came in and changed that, and he changed the beard policy, where we had to every year we had to go to the doctor so they can tell us that we had pseudofolliculitis. And he said, if you got it and you diagnosed once, that's it. So he made changes, and white and black officers literally said he was one of the best chief that we had. Why? Because he was personable and said, nobody's going to mess with my officers unless they talk to me. And, it was just a good experience as one of the best chiefs. And I always say that Chief Thiegy said that Thomas Stryker was her mentor. That's just saying enough right there. He had a history of foolishness, of discrimination, and nonsense among the police department.
Which, Ray, we definitely got to get you. I hope I didn't scare you off, man. The Barbarian came out a little bit today, but you 30-year vet, man. You ain't scared of nothing, bro. So this ain't nothing. We just talking. But hope you come back, bro.
Appreciate it, man.
man. Thank you. I want to keep it real. You felt
Yeah.
you felt like that big brother, man. That we going at it. We, like you said, Dre. We go. It's gonna get heated, but we all gonna feel the love at the end of the show. That's what's necessary.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
It's all love, brother. We all see things different ways, and a lot of it has to do with experience. And I think the whole point is we try to learn from each other. You know, I tell Nathan all the time, we go at it, but there'll be times where I'll come back. It might be a show, it might be 2 shows later, and I'll be like, yeah, bro, you know, I thought about what you said. You know, I might have to back down off of that, and vice versa. You know, it happens, and I mean that's the whole point of the show is we just want to try to bring perspectives. And yours was greatly, greatly appreciated today. So I echo Nathan. I hope you come back and join us.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
All right, bro. Hey, well, Kevin and Brother Dre, thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everybody. And we'll be back with you next Tuesday and Friday at 1 p.m. You never know who's going to be on the crew. Just keep your eyes on this page here, and we'll let you know.